All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're going deep on something really out there. It's called the Nebula Project.
Nebula, yep.
Imagine like a computer that thinks like our brains, but instead of all the electrical signals, it uses light.
Fascinating stuff.
It is. We've got a whole pile of research papers, even some code, and we're going to break it down.
Yeah.
Get ready. It's going to be wild.
Well, the thing about Nebula, it's really aiming to, revolutionize how we think about large language models, those LLMs everyone's talking about.
Right, right.
Powerful, sure, but they eat up so much power, so much energy. Nebula, though, it's trying to crack that problem, by using light, because light is just so incredibly fast and efficient.
So instead of like crunching numbers, it's almost like orchestrating light.
I like that. It's a really good way to put it. It all starts with this 2D model. Think of it like a canvas. Each color, each beam of light represents a different data point.
Whoa.
And then just like an artist, mixing colors, these colors start interacting, they blend, and the new colors that emerge, those are the answers, the results of complex calculations.
So like if red light is, say, the word cat, and blue light is chases, they mix and you
get a brand new color, something unique that represents that whole idea of cat chases. It is simplified, of course, but it gets at the heart of how simple interactions of light can lead to these really complex computations.
So we're talking about a computer that paints with light to think, basically. Wow, that's incredible.
It really is.
But how do we go from this like 2D model to something, real world?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. They've taken that 2D model and used it to build a super fast holographic memory system. Remember all those equations in the papers, the ones with all the Greek letters and symbols?
Yeah, I tried to skim those.
That's holography. It's the science of encoding information in patterns of light, really complex patterns.
Hold on, holograms, like Princess Leia, Star Wars holograms. Is this thing gonna project 3D images of cats playing with lasers?
Haha. Not exactly, no. Instead of projecting images, we're storing information, tons of information, in these light patterns. And the cool thing about holograms is that they allow for something called associative retrieval. It's like having a photographic memory, but like a supercharged one.
Associative retrieval. Now that sounds fancy. What does that even mean?
Basically, it means you can access information not just by its location, like an address, but by its content, by what it means. Imagine you ask Nebula, tell me about famous physicists, and instead of searching a database, it just instantly pulls up Einstein, Newton, Curie, all based on that concept of famous physicists. No searching, just pure instant recall.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. So it's like this instant knowledge base for the AI.
That's a great way to think about it.
But okay, how does it actually process all this information? It needs something like neurons, right?
Right. And that's where it gets even cooler. They're simulating neurons, the brain cells that process information. They're simulating them as these tiny, tiny crystal spheres.
Okay.
And these spheres, they bend and change the light that passes through them, just like neurons fire and transmit signals in our brains.
So crystal spheres bending light. I don't know, it sounds almost magical.
There is an elegance to it, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, there's tons of complex math and physics behind it, like the Helmholtz equation, which, it describes how light waves move, but the end result is this incredibly elegant simulation of a brain using light.
Helmholtz equation, right? Scribble's note. All right. So we've got the light-based holographic memory, these tiny crystal neurons bending light to process things. But, it's all light, right? How do they actually see how the information is moving around in there?
Well, for that, they've used a technique called ray tracing. You might know it from video games. It's what makes those graphics look so realistic.
Wait, so the same tech that lets me explore, like a super detailed virtual world, is being used to see inside this AI's brain. That's amazing.
Exactly. By tracing the paths of individual rays of light as they interact with those holographic neurons, they can actually see how the information flows through the simulated optical brain, like watching Nebula think.
Okay, I'm really starting to get how powerful this could be. But even if it's light, wouldn't simulating a whole brain, wouldn't that still need a ton of computing power?
Absolutely. But they have a solution for that, too. They're using something called CUA. It's a platform that taps into the power of GPUs, the processors that, were originally designed for graphics-heavy stuff like gaming.
So they're giving this AI brain a turbo boost using gaming tech. I love that. It's like turning a super-powered gaming PC into a brain. But, okay, the big question, does it actually work? Can it keep up with the LLMs we have now?
Early results are really promising. The paper suggests nebula could be, get this, 10 to 100 times faster than what we've got now, and it could do it all using half the memory.
Whoa, that's a huge speed boost. What about accuracy, though? Can it match the performance of the LLMs we use today?
It's still being worked on, but it's already at about 85% of what traditional LLMs can do. Not perfect yet, but the potential is huge, especially given how much faster and more efficient it could be.
Okay, let's pause for a second. Bring it back down to earth for a minute. Why should the average person care about LLMs being faster and more efficient? What's in it for us?
Imagine a world where you've got instant access to, like, all the knowledge in the world, like having an internet in your head, but without any lag. Think about AI that can learn crazy fast, adapting to new info instantly.
The ultimate research assistant. I like it. No more spending hours digging through search results.
Exactly. But it's bigger than just research. Think personalized education, AI tutors that adapt to each student, or super fast medical diagnoses where AI helps doctors make decisions in seconds.
And you mentioned Nebula could revolutionize something called RAG, right? Remind me, what is RAG again, and how does it fit in with all this?
Right, retrieval augmented generation, or ARIMAGI. It's basically giving an LLM a photographic memory. It can instantly pull up any relevant information it needs to answer a question or do a task, like Google search built right into the AI.
So instead of just giving pre-programmed answers, these LLMs could actually learn and reason based on like a huge, constantly updating knowledge base.
Exactly. And with how fast and efficient Nebula could be, we could be looking at a whole new era of AI.
Okay, we've covered a lot. How Nebula uses light to think, the holographic memory, those wild crystal neurons, and ray tracing, and C2A. But I feel like there's more to this story, especially with those mentions of quantum memory and HQ Rig in the papers. What's that all about?
You're right. We've only just dipped our toes in. And trust me, things are about to get even weirder as we head into the quantum realm.
Okay, well, bring on the quantum weirdness. I'm ready to see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
So you ready to dig into those Python scripts you sent? Hologram-LLM-demo1.py and hologram-LLM-demo2.py.
Let's do it. I'm always curious to see how these crazy ideas actually work in code.
Well, what's neat is that they actually show the core ideas of Nebula, like right there on your computer.
Really?
Yeah, they use libraries like CUPA and Numba, and that lets them tap into the power of your GPU, your graphics card. They're basically simulating how light behaves, but on a graphics card.
So instead of a lab full of lasers and crystals, they've got this whole optical brain simulation running in software.
Exactly. It's so much easier to test things out this way. Tweak the parameters, try different configurations, no need to build all the expensive hardware.
Makes sense. So what can these demos actually do?
The first one, Demo 1, that's like the basic implementation. It creates a simplified holographic representation of an LLM and then simulates how light would move through it.
Right, they use that word, propagation of light. What does that actually mean?
Well, right, yeah. It just means how light waves travel and interact as they move through space. The script uses something called the angular spectrum method, which is a math technique to figure out how the light field changes as it propagates.
So it's basically simulating how light would bounce around inside this holographic brain.
Pretty much. And to make it more realistic, they even include those optical neurons, those tiny crystal spheres we talked about.
Oh, right. So even in this simplified model, they've got those neurons that can bend the light and change it.
Yeah, you need those to process information. And get this, they even use ray tracing to simulate how the light interacts with the neurons. That way they can actually visualize how information is flowing through this simulated LLM.
So we've got the holographic memory, we've got the simulated neurons, and we've got ray tracing to actually see how it all works. Yeah. We can look right inside this AI and see it thinking.
It really is.
What about Demo 2, though? What's different about that one?
Well, Demo 2 takes things up a notch. It builds on the first demo and adds in a simplified version of the transformer architecture.
The transformer? Isn't that what powers some of the most advanced LLMs out there, like ChatGPT?
Exactly. It's this specific type of neural network architecture that's been super successful in natural language processing.
So they're not just simulating any old LLM, they're simulating one that uses the same architecture as some of the most sophisticated AIs we have.
Yep. And this demo is important because it shows how things like embeddings, attention matrices, output projections, all these key parts of the transformer can actually be represented and processed using this holographic approach.
Okay, I'm starting to see how complex this is getting. Can you give me an example? Like, how do they actually represent these abstract ideas with light?
Sure. Let's take embeddings. The script creates an embedding matrix, which basically takes words or tokens and turns them into vectors, lists of numbers. And those vectors, they get encoded as specific patterns of light within the hologram.
So each word gets its own little light show.
I love that analogy. And then the attention mechanism, which is how the LLM figures out how words relate to each other in a sentence, that's simulated by how different parts of the hologram interact.
So it's like each word's light show is influencing the other light shows, depending on how important those words are to each other.
That's a great way to put it. And then at the end, the output projection, that's what turns the processed information back into words we can understand. And that's simulated by decoding the final state of those light patterns.
So if you're all this light bouncing around and interacting, we end up with, words, right? Sentences, stories.
Exactly. And to show you just how powerful this is, the demo even includes a simple training loop. So you can see how this holographic LLM can actually be taught to generate text, just like the traditional LLMs.
Wait, training loop? We're talking about machine learning here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even train an AI that's, a simulation of light?
That's the really cool part. The training involves tweaking the properties of those holographic neurons and changing the light patterns in the hologram. It's kind of like how connections between neurons get stronger or weaker in our brains when we learn something.
So by messing with how the light interacts in this simulated brain, they can teach it to recognize patterns and relationships between words, just like we train traditional LLMs with all those huge data sets.
Exactly. It's a totally different way of doing computing, but it's getting really similar results. And the potential benefits in terms of speed, efficiency, and how much you can scale it is all pretty mind-blowing.
I'm seeing how this is way more than just a cool visualization. It's like a whole new way of thinking about how we build AI, but I have a feeling we're not done yet.
Yeah.
Right? What about those hints in the research papers, the quantum memory and HQR Rig stuff?
You're picking up on all the right clues. And yeah, we're about to step into the world of quantum mechanics, where things get, even weirder.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with the quantum weirdness. Okay, so quantum weirdness, lay it on me. What's the deal with nebula and quantum mechanics?
Well, the really wild thing about nebula is it doesn't stop at just simulating, classical optics. They're actually looking at using quantum mechanics to make it even more powerful.
Quantum mechanics. We're talking particles being in multiple states, Schrödinger's cat, all that. My brain's already starting to hurt.
I know, it's a lot. But basically, the idea is that nebula could use these quantum phenomena like superposition and entanglement to create a memory system that's exponentially more powerful than anything we can build today.
Okay, back up a sec. Superposition, entanglement. Those are pretty out there. Can you remind me what those are again?
Sure. Think of a qubit. It's like the quantum version of a bit. Now, imagine that qubit can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. That's superposition. It means a single qubit can hold way, way more information than a regular bit.
So it's like a bit on steroids, basically. Way more storage capacity.
Yeah, exactly. And entanglement is even weirder. It's this idea that two qubits, even if they're miles apart, are linked. Like if you measure one, you instantly know the state of the other one.
Spooky action at a distance, right? That's what Einstein called it. But how does all this quantum stuff apply to nebula?
Well, imagine storing information not as regular bits of light, but as these quantum states in entangled qubits. That could give you a memory system with insane storage and crazy fast retrieval speeds.
So we're not just talking faster LLMs. We're talking LLMs that can access and process information on a whole other level.
Exactly. And it's not just capacity and speed. Entanglement could even let these LLMs communicate in ways we can't even imagine, like a quantum internet of AI.
Okay, now that is straight up sci-fi. A quantum internet of AI.
I know, right? And it gets even wilder. The papers talk about combining this quantum memory with something called a holographic quantum RAG, or HQ Rig.
HQ Rig, another acronym. Okay, what in the world is that?
It's like that RAG we talked about, retrieval augmented generate, but, quantum. Instead of pulling info from a normal database, HQR Rig would use quantum algorithms to access and process information stored in that massive quantum memory.
So it's like giving an LLM the keys to the ultimate quantum library.
Perfect analogy. And the cool thing about quantum algorithms is they can do certain types of searches way, way faster than any classical algorithm.
So even with all that data in the quantum memory, the LLM could still find exactly what it needs instantly.
Exactly. Imagine asking a question, and the AI just instantly sifts through all of human knowledge and finds the best, most insightful answer for you.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the potential here. It's huge. But let's be real. Is any of this actually possible? We're still struggling to build quantum computers, let alone combining them with, AI like Nebula.
That's the big question, isn't it? And you're right, it's a massive undertaking, but the research does outline a possible path forward. It's a bold vision, but I wouldn't say it's impossible.
So it's more like a long-term goal, a peek into a future where AI runs on quantum mechanics.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's really a testament to human ingenuity and our drive to push the boundaries of what we know. And even if we don't get to full-blown quantum AI anytime soon, the things we learn from this research, they could lead to big advances in both quantum computing and AI.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive. We started with a computer that uses light, talked about holograms and simulated neurons, and now we're talking about the future of AI with quantum mechanics. It's amazing to see how far we've come and just how much potential there is.
It really is inspiring, and it shows that we're always pushing the limits of what we thought was possible. Who knows what incredible discoveries are just around the corner?
So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do if they want to learn more about all this?
Well, definitely check out those research papers we mentioned, dig into the code, and most importantly, keep asking questions. Curiosity is what drives innovation.
This deep dive has given us a glimpse into a future where AI is not just, faster or more efficient, but fundamentally different. An AI that could do things we never even dreamed of. It's exciting, a little scary maybe, but definitely a future worth exploring.
I couldn't agree more. And who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the one to make this vision a reality. The future of AI is out there, and it's up to all of us to explore it.
That's a great way to wrap things up. Until next time, stay curious, keep those imaginations firing.